as Lindsay very nicely said, my name is Julia Mitchell, and I'm sure all of y'all are thinking, where's this accent from? Because that is the number one question that I get from everywhere that we go here in Massachusetts is where's that accent from? But we are originally from Alabama, but we have not lived in Alabama for a number of years. So, and as much as we try, we just can't get rid of the thing. It just keeps following along with us. As a matter of fact, my neighbors, if they come in and I am talking to my mother, they say it gets far worse. They think, talking to my mother in Mississippi, next thing you know, I sound like her. So I am, let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing today, because it's a little differently than some of my other classes. So, so I have my husband who is helping me with the video, and we decided to do 2 angles because seeing the inside of the bowls will be a lot easier if you have the ability to look at a separate screen. So if you have gallery view, you can hear me from the regular camera, but you'll be able to see exactly what I'm doing inside the bowl. And you can choose what angle you want to look at. If you just want to look at me, that's totally fine. But if you want to see a close-up, then he'll be doing close-ups of my hands as I do stuff. So hopefully that will help you get a better idea, because making biscuits is definitely something you have to get your hands into. So, so with that in mind, normally how my biscuit classes run is I start and I tell you stories about biscuits and why they're so important to me and all this. But I'm not going to do that today. What we're going to do is we're going to get started making things, and then we're going to, in between when the biscuits are cooking, then I'm going to tell you the stories. So we're going to sort of do it in a flip-flop way, if y'all don't mind. So the first thing I need to do is introduce my testers, because in a few minutes, we are going to have so many biscuits coming out of this house that I need to introduce my tester. So the first tester you're going to meet is a very refined palate, an 11-year-old here. He is my son. He eats biscuits daily, so he should have a good idea of what he likes and what he doesn't like, and he's terribly honest. So he'll be here, and so when I call for my testers, he'll be here. And then if I don't feed my cameraman, then he too will be upset. So my cameraman is, there you go, you see his hand. So that his name is Tim, and this is Langdon. So I have turned on my oven for my first biscuit. And the first biscuits we're gonna do are cream biscuits. And that oven goes on at 500. So if you are already hot in your house, you're gonna get really hot in your house. That's the thing about biscuits, is they cook at a high temperature and they cook quick, okay? So now, before we make biscuits, we're gonna do something that I call gilding the lily. Gilding the lily is the little things we do on the side that sort of make biscuits go from basic everyday biscuits to raising it up a level. And if you have your recipe sheets, you'll see it starts with orange honey butter. So, so I have some butter that's already been softened, a half a cup, and I'm just simply going to put that into the bowl. Woo! I set that out just a few minutes ago, and look at that. That is soft. Hold on, I'm going to have to get some. This will not be a hard project at all today. Okay, so we just put our butter in there, and then we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of honey. And I am amazed at how many good honeys there are in this area. And also, I'm very hopeful that I see about 3 or 4 beekeepers here in Long Meadow. So, so you can get good natural honey. So I always say when I'm gilding the lily that this good thing is I'm giving myself some honey, so my allergies don't get, or my husband's allergies don't get near as active. The next thing is you take an orange. And if you don't have one of these tools, this is called a microplane. And this is one of the, I don't recommend a lot of things for people's kitchens because I think we over-accessorize sometimes, but microplanes are invaluable to me in the kitchen. And what it is, I'll show it over here, it is a very, very fine blade. okay? And you can zest things. You can get your Parmesan to that perfect melting temperature. You can chocolate. It's great for chocolate to decorate the top of a cake. But this really is one of the invaluable tools. And so you just simply take it and you run it across one time across your orange. And I just go in a line. Oh, I love the smell. It makes me try and tell myself that I've cleaned the kitchen recently and everything smells fresh. Same thing with the lemon. Sometimes a little lemon zest on top of chicken or fish right before you serve it is great. Or if you want to have a little lime zest and put it on top of a cocktail in the evening, then I'm just going to tap that in there. This makes this task very easier. A lot of people, what they do is they peel the rind off and then they chop it up, finally dice it. And I am too lazy for that. I would not do it. I'll pay the $5, $7 to get one of these microplanes. And then that's it. The orange is done. So you simply tap that into your butter and your honey, and you begin to mix. And I make up a few of these every few weeks, and I just keep them in the refrigerator. And then when I'm ready to use them, then they're just ready to go. They will last about 2 to 3 months in the refrigerator if you keep them wrapped. Otherwise, butter, as I'm sure all of y'all know, it accepts all of the smells in your refrigerator. So the best thing you can do is keep it wrapped up. And so this is so liquidy. Look at this. That's crazy. Whew. Nothing like summer in Massachusetts. So I guess it's better than summer in Alabama, which is about 110 today. And so what I do before I serve it is I'll put it in these little ramekins like this. And I'll just have it in the refrigerator. I'll seal them in a zip top bag or something. And then have them in the refrigerator so they're ready to serve on the plate. The other thing you can do is let this get a little colder and then put it into, well, goodness gracious, I'm gonna sweat my nose off. Then what you do is you put it into some wax paper and you just simply roll it in the wax paper and let it chill. And then when you need it, you just slice it off like you're doing like a cookie dough or something. So that's the other way. So we'll just put these in the refrigerator so they'll be ready to eat in a few minutes. And just a note about when you're zesting an orange, you never want to get into the pith. That's the white part. And that's why I only do it one time. If you go into the pith, then it'll take on a bitter flavor. And so I simply just cross over the orange one time. Now, normally what I'll do too is I'll taste it. That tastes great. If it needed a little bit of more orange flavor, then I'll go and get another orange. Putting things in it like orange flavoring or orange juice, what it will do is it'll make the fats in the butter separate, and you will you'll never get it back together again. So don't do that. Just putting more zest. But I think this tastes perfect.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, I have the recipe for cream biscuits.
Right.
And it doesn't
You have the
say
recipe for orange honey butter?
orange honey butter.
No?
Okay, I do, but I don't have I don't have orange rind.
Right. Orange honey butter with half a cup of butter softened.
So I got half a cup of butter. Yeah, orange rind, which I don't have. I didn't realize we needed that.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I should have explained that. I am so sorry. You know what? We're going to do a couple of things. I'm sorry. What we're going to do, you know what? I am so sorry. Let's try this again. I believe doing biscuits, you have to see somebody do it a couple times.
Okay.
And so I am going to make a few recipes before we get to where we're doing your biscuits. So that would have helped a ton, wouldn't it? So, so these are just sort of the lead up recipes for y'all to know, so that when we get to making biscuits, you've seen my hands do it a few times, so we can do it together. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. It's just me. I got you. Okay.
Okay, and so
Thank you.
just to mention on that same page while you're on it is the honey mustard sauce. So this honey mustard sauce is wonderful. So it's just a little mayo, a little whole grain mustard or Dijon mustard, some honey, and again, orange rind. Now, why would I give you that recipe when we're making biscuits? Well, one thing is that one of our favorite things in the South to put on a biscuit is a good piece of ham. We love ham and biscuits, and it's just something that is a staple on our Sunday table. And so just a little bit of this honey mustard sauce is great. Now, are you going to make this only for biscuits? Well, goodness no, that's just too much work, right? So what I would do is I make this up, and then I use it for biscuits. But then when I need a quick little salad dressing, then I just either add a little milk to thin it out, and it makes a great salad dressing. Or if I need like a dip for chicken fingers, then I'll thin it out with a little milk. You can add a little sour cream to it, and it's great on a potato. I know that sounds odd putting honey on a potato, but it really does add like a little zing to it. And I'll actually put it on the potato and then put it back into the oven and let it bake, and that honey gets crunchy from it. And it actually, even with the orange, is a really lovely flavor. So that is what I call gilding the lily. And I have about 50 different recipes for gilding the lily. We make strawberry butter, we make peach butter, apple jam, I mean, anything like that. And we just keep little bitty little flavor bursts to go with our biscuits. So we're going to set this to the side. So the next thing that I'm going to make, so you can sort of see how biscuits go, is a cream biscuit. And what a cream biscuit is it's really what we call a cheater biscuit. And I don't know if any of y'all know a chef or a cook. She's not a chef, a cook in Savannah. Her name is Paula Dean. And Paula Dean is a wonderful woman. I worked with her a lot at the magazine. And Paula Dean has a horrible habit. She always runs late no matter where she's going. So if you're coming to her house for a meeting or something, the first thing she does is when you come in, she goes, well, I didn't have time to make anything else, so let me just make you some cream biscuits. And so I always think of her when I make these biscuits because they're so fast and so easy, anybody can make them. And it's one of the first biscuits that really children learn to make because it simply has 3 ingredients. So let's start with that. Now, here is our flour. Now we're going to talk a little bit about self-rising flour. I loved one of the visitors that when I was dropping off ingredients, what she said is, you don't have to give me that, I have flour. And I was like, no, this is different kind of flour because the flour we're using is white lily, and it comes from Tennessee. And what this is different about the flour that y'all have is this is what we call a winter wheat flour. And a winter wheat flour, what it means is that the wheat is actually planted in September and it grows through the winter, and we harvest it early in the spring. And what this creates is it doesn't bake in the hot sun. And so this flour is very soft. Matter of fact, if you have any, I mean, if you put it between your fingers, it feels like a fabulous face powder. I mean, it's so light and so, it's just beautiful. It's just a beautiful, very soft flour. And so that's the reason why you got that flour. Is when you make your biscuits in a couple of minutes, then you have white lily flour. And this particular one is unbleached and self-rising. And so I only use self-rising flour when I make biscuits. One, because it saves time, and two, because it lets me control the salt content a little bit more. So that's one reason why I do it. So let's talk about things people do wrong in biscuits. So the first thing people do wrong is sorry about that. Oh, and there it was. The first thing people do wrong is they measure wrong. So when you'll see people, when you say, okay, I need 2 cups of flour, they take their measure and they dig into the bag like this. And of course, everybody knows to take a knife or something and scrape it off like that, right? And then they dump it in. Okay. Now look at that flour. Look how tight it is in there. Boy, it's in there good. Okay. Now that is wrong. Okay. We do not measure flour for biscuits that way. When you scoop into a bag, it gets between 12 and 15% more flour than really the recipe allows for. And this goes for any kind of baking. So the way you should do it is this way. And obviously when you're going into your bag, but I've already got this done out, is you take your flour. You see how I'm doing it? I'm just simply letting it flow over. I mean, it has a good mound on top of it. And then and it is the correct volume. Now, biscuits are funny things. Biscuits have personalities based on what the temperature is outside, what the temperature of the flour is. It has a personality based on what kind of water content is in your butter. And so if perhaps you have a less fat butter, sometimes like the one sold at Big Y under their brand name, that butter has more water than fat content than like Land O'Lakes. And so it takes less liquid for the biscuits. So what I've done is I've already pre-measured. So this is 2 cups of self-rising flour. And I had a little bit in there for dusting, so I'm going to put that out there. And you have 1 tablespoon of sugar. And then the last thing you have is 1.5 cups of cream. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about with biscuits, you have to have certain components. You have to have a flour, that's obvious, but that flour can change. Perhaps you want to do this with an almond flour, or perhaps you want to do this with something else, but you have to have obviously a binding flour. And then you have to have a fat, okay? And in this case, our fat is in our cream, okay? So we aren't using a butter or a Crisco or a lard. So we're using the fat that's in this cream. And then you have to have liquid. Some people swear by what I call a milk biscuit, and they do not use buttermilk. So they just only use milk. Some people, if they're running short, sometimes they'll even use water. Now, it will make a really crunchy biscuit. That's not my favorite, but if you like it, then go for it. But it's a really crunchy biscuit. And then the one that I like the most is a buttermilk biscuit. And the reason why I like buttermilk biscuits is it has a little bit of twang to it. Buttermilk may not be something that you keep in your refrigerator all the time, but you can make buttermilk by simply adding vinegar to milk. But just that little bit of vinegar makes the biscuit just have this, it gives a different, separate little acid note to it that I think is really pleasant. So all we're going to do with this, and anytime you're mixing a biscuit, you always mix with a fork. And the reason why is that allows all the ingredients to get mixed up. So all I have here is 1.5 cups of heavy cream. And we're just going to mix this up. So the thing about this biscuit is you're going to hear me say these words called shaggy. We want our biscuit to be shaggy, okay? And this biscuit it actually will look different. It will not look like the other biscuits we do. It will look a little shaggy, but it has this texture to it. And I'm going to hold it up so Tim can see it. Can you see that? The texture on these biscuits, when you drag your fork through it, the fork pulls the dough, okay? So there's actually, it's like, it's more like a dough rather than a biscuit. So when I say shaggy, this particular biscuit does not look what we will call shaggy, okay? How many times can I say shaggy in a minute? Boy, that was a lot. Okay, so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna roll these puppies out. And to do that, I'm just simply putting it onto the counter. Now, you'll hear all of my baking jokes while you're here. So biscuits are just like people. They need to be kneaded, right? And so every biscuit you make, the best thing you can do for them is knead them. Now, this is not bread kneading, okay? This is biscuit kneading, and I'm going to show you how that's different. So I've got a little flour on my surface, and I'm going to put a little on top because this particular dough is, it will stick easily to my hands. Okay, when you knead a biscuit, you don't do like bread where you roll it out like this. You don't do that. What you're basically doing is folding it into itself like this, just a couple of times. And my mother used to say, or my grandmother used to say, is you, each time you turn it, just say the name of your children or someone you love, and then that's as much as you need to do. As she said, she didn't love that many people, so 10 was definitely enough. Okay, now you can see I'm not using a rolling pin with this. And if you look at this dough when you make it at home, this dough has a very, it feels more like an over wet shortbread dough. And I'm going to just simply push this dough out. To about, I'm going to put it out to about 1/2 inch thick. So the way you can know a half inch is from here to here is about 1 inch. So a 1/2 inch is about half of that. So I always say it's about to the end of my fingernail. So I put it to about 1 inch thick. Now, I told you the 3 components of a biscuit: flour, fat, some sort of fat, butter, lard, shortening, whatever, and then a liquid: water, milk, buttermilk. Okay? And then I told you that the #1 reason why people don't have good biscuits is they get too dry because they don't measure their flour right. But here is the #1 reason why people's biscuits don't rise, okay? This is a biscuit cutter. You do not have to have a biscuit cutter like this. I just happen to have one that has a whole bunch of sizes to it. And this is what most people do. If you got me, Tim? Is when they push in to their dough or whatever, they twist and pull out, okay? When you twist your biscuit cutter, you're actually sealing all the edges of those biscuits. Not of the biscuit, of that biscuit. And when you seal it, you're not allowing the biscuit to rise to its full potential. And so you have a more dense biscuit. And what we want is biscuits that look like they might just fly off the plate, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make our biscuits here. We got a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna go down and up. And if it doesn't come out, I don't get worried about it. I just simply leave it there. So that one didn't want to come out too well. Well, I can get that one out. Now, when you have biscuits, you have a choice here. I tend to like very soft biscuits in the middle, but I want them to be crunchy on the edges, okay? And so I then put my biscuits semi-close together. Okay, if you can see here, they're not touching, semi-close together. The closer you get them together, the softer your biscuits are going to be all the way around. Okay, if you like a crunchy biscuit, then give a lot of space between your biscuits. And there we go. And that will allow all the air to circulate around it, and it'll get nice and crunchy. Now, the other thing about this biscuit is what a lot of people do, because they this biscuit is a heat 'em up and eat 'em up biscuit. Once you heat these biscuits up, then you got to eat them, because what happens is, because they don't have any other structural fat in them besides the heavy whipping cream, after a few minutes, after about 20 minutes, to me, these biscuits, I don't want them anymore. They're unedible. They're not unedible, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'll say a biscuit's better than anything you can get at Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, but look at all my instructions here. So, but these biscuits, they get hard. So what I do is I might make these biscuits in the morning and we eat them, but if I have some left over, then what I do with those biscuits is I turn croutons into them. And you can make cinnamon sugar croutons and use them for a dessert, or you can make regular croutons and put them in your salad. But I would not eat them. Like, there's biscuits that I have right here that we made for breakfast, and they're in a zip top bag, and we'll eat those throughout the day. If I didn't want to get bread out for a sandwich, I'll just put my peanut butter and jelly on a biscuit. And but I would not do it with these. In about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, they get tough, and so they're not fun to eat to me. So I use them for other things. So the other thing that's unusual about this is you're going to put them in a 500-degree oven. So that is way too hot for most things, especially fast breads. But these particular biscuits go in at 500 degrees, and here's the key: you let them cook until they're brown, but don't go over 12 minutes. I mean, they will go from perfect to non-edible very quickly, because the milk fat in the heavy cream, it burns very quickly. So you keep an eye on them. So I normally set the timer for 9 minutes, and then sometimes they even come out, and it all depends on, sometimes it's just how the weather is that day. So we'll put these in at 500 degrees. Hey Google, set a timer for 9 minutes.
9 minutes, and we're starting now.
Now these biscuits are going to be good. They're going to be good. Matter of fact, one of my neighbors says this is her favorite biscuit. But I will tell you that these biscuits are very good when they're hot with a little butter on them. But if you'll give them just a minute, you're going to learn how to make a southern treat called pimento cheese. Now, I know this is going to make me sound dumb. Obviously, you know that there's cheddar cheese, there's Swiss cheese, there's all of these other types of cheese. As a young child, I did not know pimento cheese was just, I thought it was a total category of cheese. It is so everywhere. You go and visit, you sit down in the afternoon with your grandmother on the front porch, and she just gives you some pimento cheese and some crackers. Now, what is pimento cheese? Okay. After the Civil War, pimentos were, peppers, red peppers and pimentos were planted plentifully in South Georgia and South Alabama and Mississippi. But they didn't really know what to do with them. It wasn't a crop that they could sell easily. And so they ran a contest to see who could come up with some of the best recipes to use these pimentos. And the reason why they planted them was because the seeds were given to them for free, and they were suffering. So they were suffering from after the Civil War, and they thought, well, maybe we can eat these, and they can only eat so many of these. And so then they had a contest to see, and this was the recipe that everyone loved the most. And this particular recipe that I'm sharing with you, I should give you a little caveat. This is not my grandmother's recipe. This is actually Scott Peacock. Scott Peacock is a famous chef in Atlanta. He has written many Southern cookbooks. Matter of fact, his most famous one just recently won the James Beard, and he wrote it with Edna Lewis before she passed away. And if you don't know Edna Lewis, give yourself a treat and go to the library, because I made sure that they had Edna Lewis cookbooks in there, because Edna Lewis is just it's almost like reading more of a history book than it's like reading anything else. She writes about the South and what it was like to grow up in the South, and before she passed, Scott Peacock quit his job as a chef, and he went and lived with Miss Lewis for about 5 years, and wrote down all of her information that she knew about Southern cooking. And so this is actually his pimento cheese recipe that's sort of adapted from Miss Edna's. So, but basically all it is you take 2.5 cups, about 10 ounces of extra sharp cheddar cheese. Now, let me tell you, we have some good cheese in Alabama, but we don't have anything as good as y'all's Vermont cheddar that you have up here. So this I made with Vermont sharp cheddar cheese. And then about 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Now, I say 1/8 of a teaspoon because we've adapted this recipe from living up north for a while. And sometimes y'all don't like things quite as spicy as we do. So 1/8 of a teaspoon would not be near enough for a good Southerner. But so you just go to your taste, but start at least with 1/8 of a teaspoon. You got to have a little bit of salt, just a little bit salt to taste, and about 5 or 6 grinds on a good pepper grinder. Now, don't treat yourself and use those good berries, or good telecherry berries. Then you need about 1/4 of a cup of mayonnaise, and then 3 tablespoons, or as I say, about 1 roasted red pepper. Now, if you don't know how to roast a red pepper, it's real easy. All you do is you just clean that pepper off, put a little olive oil on it, put it on a small pan about this size, and you just put it in a 400-degree oven for a while, and that thing's going to get dark and black and all that, and you just turn it every few minutes, and your kitchen will smell so good. And then after it's gotten black all the way around, or at least bubbled all the way around, you just take that out, let it cool, and you just peel that skin off. And then what you're left with is a roasted red pepper. And that roasted red pepper, then you just dice it up, and you just put it in your pimento cheese. Now, people, I wish y'all were here to taste it. It almost makes me so sad that you're not here to taste it. So I'll just have to let Tim taste it. So I don't know if there could be a Southern football game that went on if they didn't have a pimento cheese sandwich. What do you think, Tim? It doesn't have a hot pepper, you know. Is that good?
Very tasty.
Yeah. You want to say some? I've got Langdon coming in. So yeah, Southern football games, pretty much every Southern football game, pimento cheese. Not bad. Good, thanks. Every Southern football game, you have pimento cheese sandwiches. Now, if you happen to get to go to Augusta during the Masters Week, one of the things that they will always serve is pimento cheese sandwiches on white bread, and they put them in these beautiful little green wax fold over, and they sell them for like $1, isn't it? $2, something like that. It's like $2 for this healthy pimento cheese sandwich, and it is a fond memory of mine of sitting in Augusta and watching the golfers come in and munching on pimento cheese sandwiches. So anyway, I implore you to give pimento cheese sandwiches a try. Also, if any of y'all are racing fans, Kentucky Derby can't go on unless you have pimento cheese. So they have pimento cheese there. So I'm going to put a little pimento cheese on our plate here on one side, and I'm going to put our gilded lily on the other. And in a second, our biscuits are going to come out, and we're going to have our first little biscuit tasting. So that's pimento cheese. So you've got that recipe for Scott Peacock's pimento cheese. Now, people are going to ask me, I know, what kind of mayonnaise do you use? Well, This is the official Southern mayonnaise. It's called Duke's. It's made in the South. We are so obsessed about Duke's that people in their home have paintings of Duke's mayonnaise jars. Now this isn't a jar. This is their new squeeze, easy squeeze, which and it's been around forever. So I use Duke's. Now you're not going to be able to buy Duke's anywhere near here. So what you do is you can order it on Amazon, and I say it is well worth it. Treat yourself. Or if you can't use Duke's, then Hellman's is the only one that I would say that I approve of using in a pimento cheese. You need something that has that little kick of acid that makes pimento cheese just have that little zing to it. So remember Duke's mayo. Or you can stop by my house and get some. Sadly, we probably keep vats of it. Okay, let me see how much more do we have in the timer here. Hey Google, how much more time on the timer?
T-minus 57 seconds.
57 seconds. Okay, we're ready for a hot biscuit. Woo! Okay, so don't be scared by this because it's going to burn your parchment paper, and I always cook on parchment paper. So, so I usually take just a little bit of butter and go over the tops if I'm serving them to make them look pretty. You know, cooking is for our taste buds, but it's also for our eyes too. So we want everything to look pretty. Plus, don't we cook? There we go. Don't we just cook to make people jealous, right? So look at these. Well, so let's load these puppies up. They smell good. Whew. They're hot as blazing Moses, though. Usually I have Teflon fingers, but not today. Okay. Put these on another plate. Get these out of the way. Langdon can eat them for lunch. I haven't fed him lunch yet. Put those away and take this puppy away. Okay, I need a tester. Langdon?
So these are which type of
So this is the cream biscuit. And I'm going to give you one with, now look how fluffy these are. I mean, they break open and it looks like cake to me. And that's really what this is different. No, you're going to taste, you're going to taste. Okay. There you go. Tim, you'll take one with a little pimento cheese in it?
Sure.
the biscuit really doesn't make pimento cheese. Taste
Okay, it's not pimento cheese. You had orange.
Orange.
You had orange honey.
Oh, I don't know it's pimento cheese.
There you go. But I'm going to open this up again so y'all can see. So see, you can see everything here is real smooth. When we get to our other biscuits, this is not smooth on a regular biscuit. Only cream biscuits do this, okay? And oh, look at that when they open up. But they look like little pieces of cake, and which is nice. It's nice when you eat them and they're hot. But I think once they get cold, I don't like them as much. Oops. Goodness, it's so hot in my kitchen right now. It's melting the butter right off the thing. Oh, wait a minute. We're going to open another one here so you can see. You can see it close, and you can see the side of it, that it has a smooth texture right here. Okay? Lovely biscuit, but just not what the other biscuits are going to look like. Let me have a snackaroo here. Hold on. As we would say in the South, that's so good your tongue slaps your brains out. I'm feeling guilty. Sorry about this. Y'all gonna have a hot biscuit too. Ooh, that's good, Tim, huh?
Very.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's move this to the side. Oh, that's good. Okay. Now the next thing we're gonna do is apple cheddar biscuit. Okay. And the reason why we're doing this now is you've seen how to make these quick cream biscuits. We've talked about the ingredients and how we're gonna measure and how we're gonna use the ingredients and what each ingredient does differently. Sorry, there's one more crumb I couldn't resist. And then Tim is sitting there and he's like thinking there's one more over there. Give me that plate. You want pimento cheese or you want a?
Pimento cheese.
That was the saddest hound dog look right there. There you go. So we've talked about the ingredients and how we're going to measure our flour, and we've talked about how we're going to cut out the biscuits. So what I wanted you to do is we're going to make one more biscuit where I'm just showing you how to do it before you get out your ingredients. And then we're going to put them in the oven, and then we're going to get you ready to make your own biscuits, okay? So if you'll turn to apple cheddar biscuit. This is a biscuit that I love making because they keep really, really well for a couple of days. And they're great to take over to neighbors. They seem to really like them. And they have a wonderful sort of cheesy texture to them, and that apple makes them so moist. So, but you're going to be able to see exactly how I want your dough to look. Okay? Now I'm going to turn this 500-degree oven down because maybe this kitchen will cool off. Okay. So here's all my stuff for apple cheddar biscuits. You'll notice that I always cook on parchment. And the reason why is you have a more consistent flavor of your, because, you know, pans get used, your pans adapt different flavors and such. And so, so this keeps everything baking even. But I don't want you to be alarmed. When you make those cream biscuits at 500 degrees, they are going to, that paper is going to burn. Okay? So what we're going to make to go on the side of this, but we're not going to make it totally today. What I like to go on the side of this is something that I call Jennifer Maddox Bacon Jam. And the reason why I give her credit is for years I had worked with Martha Stewart Living, and she makes a bacon jam, and it's good. And a number of years ago, this woman, Jennifer Maddox, she took this, but it's a hassle to make. Martha Stewart, you might as well give up a day and cancel your vacation. It takes so long. But Jennifer Maddox, she took the same flavor profile that Martha Stewart has and made it very much more easy. And I think that her bacon jam holds up better for a longer time. So I can actually keep this in an airtight container in my refrigerator for about a month. You can actually go longer than that, but the color begins to change just a little bit. But her jam is really good. It has a nice coffee flavor to it. And on a biscuit, it just tastes wonderful. So I have already gone ahead and made that, so we don't have to worry about that. So that's bacon jam. That's what's going to go on these biscuits. So let's start making these apple cheddar biscuits. I've got to get a cold stick of butter. Hold on one second. If I'd left it out on the counter, I would have, it would have been as melted as the ones we did for the Gilding Your Lily. So we need 6 tablespoons or 3/4 of a stick of butter. So I've got these little mini sticks that are right now. So I'll put it in one of those. And then, here we go. Now, anytime you're doing with butter, it helps to cut the butter into small bits. And the reason why is we're going to do something called snapping the fat. Okay. So as we talked about, the fat in the cream biscuit came from that heavy whipping cream. Okay. But now the fat in this biscuit is going to come from butter. There's really 3 fats that most people use. We're going to talk about some others later, but 3 fats that most people use, and one is butter, one is Crisco, and the last one is lard. Now, I didn't give y'all any lard because I didn't want to scare you to death, but if you want to have lard, lard is available at Arnold's Meats, and it's a pretty good lard, and it makes a good biscuit. But it makes a really hearty biscuit. Like if I was going to make biscuits and want to put gravy on them, something really heavy, then a lard helps it stand up, but it gives it this bacony flavor. And I don't always want that when I'm serving it with butter and honey and orange, you see? So to me, it gives it a flavor that's not perfect unless I'm making a really savory biscuit. So we're starting with butter, and then we're going to set that aside. Now, you're going to see that I am not going to grease the pan here because I'm going to use parchment paper. So that's one difference. But if you use a regular pan, you do need to grease it. And you know what? I need to. I'm going to put the flour in, and this is already pre-measured, so I've already done the fluffing of it. And then I'm going to put in some baking powder, and this is using all-purpose flour, okay? This is not using the self-rising, so this is all-purpose flour. So this would be one that would be really easy for you to duplicate at home. Then we're going to put in a little sugar, and we're going to put in some baking soda, and some sea salt. You know what? I'm not sure if I put in baking soda.
You dumped another one in.
Huh?
You
Oh,
dumped another bowl in and said
Okay.
baking soda.
Okay. So, and a little bit of sea salt. And we're just going to take a whisk. And just sort of fluff up that flour, okay? Now I'm going to set that to the side. Now what I've got to do, some of that flour didn't want to get in there. Now what I've got to do is just dice up an apple real quickly. Now I only use Granny Smith with this because Granny Smith has a good tart flavor. And so I'm going to just peel this puppy real quickly. Oh, darn, I thought I was going to be able to do it all in one. Oh, well. They say in the South that if you can do it all in one, you get a wish. So it's like wishing on a star or something, but I guess not today. Thankful that I already have everything I need. I don't need to wish for anything. Okay. And we're going to just dice this apple up. And if a little peel gets in there, no problem. Now, if the seed gets in there, that is a problem. Nobody would like to break their tooth today. Okay, and I'm just going to rough cut this apple so that we have, dices. Boy, those seeds are everywhere today. apple's been good longer into the season. It's been a good year. And it isn't even apple season yet. Usually by the summer you can't find a good apple to save your life, but it's been nice. So, okay. So we have our flour with all of our dry ingredients. We have our butter ready. We've got our buttermilk and our apple. And I've got a bag of cheese. And what I use a cheese that's called Oscar Wilde. It has it's a little bit on the it tastes a little bit like whiskey cheddar, but it has a little mellower flavor. So it's really nice. So and normally I would tell you never throw away apple peel, but I don't have time for that today. Don't throw away apple peel. It'll save you in a ton of time. Okay, so what we're going to do is I am going to take this. I'm sorry, 1 second. Langdon, can you please not do that? And we are going to add our butter to this bowl. Okay, now, this is where we have what we call snapping the fat. So sort of work the butter a little bit. Now what butter does in a biscuit is we want to get that butter into thin sheets or little pea size. And the reason why we wanted to do it is because we put this into a hot oven. And as soon as we put it into a hot oven, the butter melts and it leaves a little hole. And when it leaves a hole, that's what makes it fluffy. And so that was the difference in those cream biscuits. Is cream biscuits, there's no butter to melt, but there's fat in the whipping cream. And so what happens is that whipping cream, the fats melt and spread out, but it doesn't leave a hole. Here, what it's going to do is the butter is actually going to melt instantly and then leave a hole, and that's what gives you a flaky biscuit. Now, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing up some flour and some of the butter, and I'm moving it out of my hands. And this is what we call snapping the fat, okay? And it's making little sheets of butter. And you're trying to get it to where, like I say, it should look like feta cheese. That's the best way that I can describe it, is it needs to look like feta cheese. Or coarse meal. Sometimes people will say coarse meal, like a cornmeal or something. Now, I have a little problem. I have the hottest hands in the world. Doesn't matter if it's freezing outside, I have burning hands, okay? So a lot of times I can't snap the fat, because what you don't want to do is you don't want this butter to melt in your hands. So what I have to do is I have to use a pastry blender usually. And with a pastry blender, you just mix it like this. And if you're not sure that you have all the chunks, first of all, if they cling to your pastry blender, you definitely have all the chunks. You take your container like that, and see your chunks rise to the top. And then you just rework it again. So you want to work all that until you get it to where it looks, like I say, a little bit like coarse meal or feta cheese. Okay, let's see how we did. Oh, got a few. So I just sort of mix with that. So I'd like for you to try, the first time when you start doing your biscuit, is the snap the fat method, which is simply taking your thumb and forefinger, and you're rubbing that butter through the flour, okay? If you don't have a pastry mixer, then I would say most people in the South, what they do is mix it with 2 forks or 2 knives, and they do this. They go like this through all their butter. And you can do it just as easily if you don't have a pastry blender. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is add our apple. And we're going to add some of our cheese, not all of our cheese, because some of the cheese we're going to put on top. Now, one reason why I also wanted to show you this biscuit is you don't have to have just a plain biscuit. Some nights we're having steak or red meat and we want like a cheddar chive biscuit. Well, this technique that we're doing right now, you can do with your basic biscuit recipe that we're going to do in a minute, and you can add cheese and chive to it. You see? And so I wanted you to see. So what you're trying to do now is just simply get this incorporated into the flour. Now, we're going to take our buttermilk and turn it, and you're going to see for the first time this shaggy dough. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot to add our scallions and that's my favorite part. But that's okay. We're still on our dry ingredients, so that's no problem. So we're going to mix in some green onion, and then because I have so much scallion growing in the garden, I have a lot of scallion. That was a little dried one. Now mix those in too. So this will have not just a cheddar and apple flavor, but a nice little onion kick to it. So, so now our dry ingredients are all incorporated. And remember, now we're going to do our buttermilk. Now, remember, as I told you, when you stir, you're not going to stir with a spoon. You're going to stir with a fork. So we're going to put in our buttermilk. And simply stir with a fork. Now your ingredients will start coming together in exactly where you put the buttermilk, but it's going to resist a little bit on the sides. Oops, an escapee. So before you add more buttermilk, really try and incorporate it and make sure, because this is more, it has a scone-like texture, and you don't want to have too wet of a dough. So now, as you see, even though it looked like before, oh, that's not going to all incorporate, it incorporated in the end. Okay, Tim, can you get a shot right here? See this dough here? Remember how the dough for the cream biscuits had a smooth top to it? I could run my hand over it, and when I ran the fork over it, it would drag and almost look more like a shortbread. This is sort of shaggy, okay? This is, and it's harder to tell because we got apple chunks in there, but you can see that, I mean, the dough sticks to itself. It doesn't want to come up with my finger. It is what we call a shaggy dough. And that's exactly what you want. And that's what you're going to want with your dough when we do it here in a minute. Okay, so we're just going to drop these right here. It normally makes about 8 of them, but they're 8 really good big size ones. And so don't feel pressure. You gotta eat a biscuit that big. Some people do not like them that big. And I normally space them out a good little bit because I think that the little crunchy parts of it make all the cheese. You know how cheese, when you cook cheese flat and you make what we call a cheese foot, which sounds disgusting, but at the same time, it's delicious. You have a little crunchy piece of cheese. Well, that's what this is going to do if you give it just a little bit of air. Ooh, I should have gotten a bigger pan. You know what? I'll make the rest of these later. That's enough crowding, I think. I want them to have a good crunchy flavor. Okay, so we're going to put these in a 425-degree oven for about 18 to 20 minutes. Okay, and then you let them cool just a minute, and we're going to serve them with that bacon jam we talked about. So let me go put these in the oven. Hey, Google, set a timer for 16 minutes.
16 minutes.
You know what? I said 425, but it's 450. Let me make sure I did that right. There we go. Okay. Now I can tell you some of the biscuit stories while we're waiting for these to cook, and then we'll start getting our other biscuits going. So, biscuits. Why are biscuits so important to me? Well, it sounds silly, but a biscuit basically changed my life. My grandmother, Mildred, lived in Iuka, Mississippi. And she was a, you know what? I swear, if I didn't have my head screwed on today, I might not make it. Hold on one second. I didn't put the cheese that I reserved down on top. Let's try this again. I'm gonna put a little cheese on top of each one of these puppies. I'll save some for the other dough that I have. And that's just to give it that extra little cheese crunch on top. What's the saying? Second verse, same as the verse, a little bit faster, a little bit worse. Here we go. Let's put this in the oven. Okay. Now we got it. So my grandmother Mildred was a country girl. She was raised in this very small town in Mississippi, and she had many sisters. So my grandfather, they didn't know each other yet. He was not from that little town, but he worked for TVA. TVA was a program that started by Roosevelt during the New Deal, and TVA basically changed our family's life. He went from a farmer to all of a sudden he studied engineering, and he worked for TVA. And he came and was working on the TVA Dam, which was one of the big water projects that FDR had them do. And so he started walking. He rented a little house in Iuka. He started walking every day. And my aunts and my grandmother saw him, thought he was so cute. And if I showed you a picture of him, you would have said, oh, he was adorable. But he was a good looking guy. And they started leaving, my grandmother started leaving biscuits in the hole of a tree. You know how trees will grow up and sometimes they'll leave a little naughty place where you can leave messages and notes. Well, she started leaving biscuits for him in the morning. And so he would walk to work and he would get those biscuits, but they never talked. And then he started leaving letters. And my Aunt Inez would pick those letters up and take them to Mildred, my grandmother. And they were just thought they were having a grand old time talking to this good looking boy who was walking to the TVA Dam every day. And then finally one day she had made cookies and cakes and whatever for him, but she made him, the first time she made biscuits, she left him in the tree. And that afternoon when she came home from school, he was on their front porch talking to my great grandfather. And he said, you know, Mr. Williams, I don't know which of your daughters made those biscuits that you put in that tree. But whichever one did, that's the one I want to marry. And so that's how he knew that my grandmother made those biscuits. And 3 weeks later they were married. And she was way too young. She was 16, and they got married. And about a year later, then my dad was born. So biscuits really played an important part. And so everybody, my Aunt Eileen and Mamie Ruth and all the rest of them, they all said, well, Mildred made the best biscuit, so she got the best husband for sure. So that's how biscuits changed our life. But why did I send y'all pearls? When I was about 13, I went for the summer to go live with my grandmother, Mildred, and she asked me what I wanted for my birthday. And she said, Well, I said, what I wanted is, I said, well, because every Southern woman has pearls, I'd like to have a strand of pearls. And she said, well, nobody gets pearls until you can make a biscuit. And because you're not really Southern unless you can make a biscuit. And so for that summer, we worked on biscuits and all sorts of Southern things. And finally, at the end of the summer, she gave me my first strand of pearls. And she said, now you are a Southern woman. So, so I made sure that today y'all are going to become Southern, little honorary Southern women too. And you'll have your strand of pearls. Because the next thing we're going to work on is a traditional Southern biscuit. Now, this is the basic Southern biscuit of them all. So, let me get all my equipment off here. And get my butter. Oops. Oops. Well, this is what happens when your butter gets smushed in the door, huh? This will be interesting, but it's good and cold, and that's good. So, as you remember, we started with our flour. So my flour has already been fluffed, and when I did it just how I said it. I, carefully scooped it into the measuring, and then did it off. And so I pre-measured this flour with 2 1/4. Now you need to realize we're going to use our eyes to cook with this. So sometimes it's just 2 cups. Sometimes it's 2 1/4. So right now I'm going to put a little right up here because I put a little extra so I'll have some dusting. And so we have our flour, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our fat. Now remember, usually there's 3 forms of fat. There's butter, Crisco, or lard. But let's take lard off the table today. Now this is how I want you to think about your fats. Okay. Imagine me right here. See me? I'm in the middle here. I am the perfect amount of a perfect biscuit, okay? And my arms over here, this side over here, this hand is butter. This hand over here is lard, okay? Now, all you have to do is you have to have about a 1/2 cup to 2 cups of flour. You have to have about a 1/2 cup of fat, okay? Butter, lard, or Crisco, okay? Now, this is where you get to choose, okay? If you add more butter, okay, more than a 1/4 cup, you know what? I'm saying this poorly. I want to make sure I go back. I am the perfect biscuit. These are my two things, butter and lard on this side. Butter and Crisco. If you add more Crisco, then you're going to get a more sturdy biscuit, okay? It holds up really well. So if I had to make biscuits that I'm going to take on a picnic, or if I'm going to take them and I'm going to have to put like a piece of chicken in between, then I add a little bit more Crisco. If I want a biscuit that has more flavor, so butter adds flavor and Crisco adds strength, okay? And the whole thing is you simply have to have a 1/2 cup of whatever fat you want to use. Now you can use a combination of it. You can use, a 1/4 cup of butter and a 1/4 cup of Crisco, or you can use all butter, or you can use all Crisco, but you need to find what you like. And then what taste and texture is right for you. And every family does it different. Now I'm going to say something ugly, and my husband's on the camera right now, so he can't come and tell me to be quiet. But his mother makes a horrible biscuit. It is the worst. Now she uses only Crisco, and she uses the thin milk and water. She uses a combination of milk and water. And what it does is it just makes it like a crumbly biscuit. But she uses all Crisco, and because of that, they're very hard little crunchy things, you know, but they don't have flavor. So what she needs is more butter. So if you're going to not use buttermilk, you got to get that flavor from somewhere. So you got to give it into it in the butter. Do you understand? So think of this as you're going back and forth, and you might stop at and say, well, I'm going to use half and half of each, 1/4 a cup of butter and 1/4 a cup of Crisco, or, you know, maybe adjust it a little bit differently. But you end up with a 1/2 cup of fat that you need to snap into this, and you have to have 2 cups flour. So I am a butter girl. So I am going to use this misshapen piece of butter that I have here. And these are those new sticks that like that right there is a whole stick, so I only need about half of this. And what I do when I do it is I cut it in half, and then I slice. Remember how we always cut things into pieces? And then put it into our butter. And then you begin the process of snapping the fat, okay? So you gotta have 1/2 cup. I think I shorted myself a little bit here. No, I didn't. Okay. So you snap that fat, okay? And again, because I have the hottest hands ever, I'm gonna reach back here and I'm gonna get my pastry blender, and I'm gonna blend that in. And remember, if we want to check that, all we do is just, and those little lumps come right up to the top. And run my hands through again. Now, okay, when I run my hands through here, remember, every one of those little butter chunklets is going to create the hole that's going to allow this to be fluffy. Now, I'm going to say, I don't know if I mismeasured my flour. I am not perfect, but it feels definitely thin. So I'm going to add just another little tablespoon of butter on here. And again, I could have just as easily added a tablespoon of Crisco. But now, if you add too much butter, what's going to happen is they literally will melt all over the pan. So don't, you know, sometimes when I'm adding extra, then I will add Crisco. So as you can see, I've got this fat pretty much snapped in there. Now, has everybody gotten that done? Is there any way, Lindsay, you could tell me everybody's doing this along with me, right?
A lot of people have their video off, so it's hard to tell, but I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Yep. But I'm here, and I think they are following along.
Okay. So now you've got your fat snapped into your flour, right? Okay, if nobody says anything in the next few minutes, I'm going to go on to the buttermilk part. Okay. I'm going to have to grab some buttermilk out of the refrigerator, otherwise it would have curdled by now. Hey, Google, how much more time in the timer?
T-minus 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Perfect. They're smelling so good, I had to check. So we're going to start with about 1 cup of buttermilk. And remember, we never do it with a spoon. We're doing this with a fork. Okay? You see that? Now remember, our goal here is a shaggy dough. Now, what happens if you get too much buttermilk? It's real easy. You just get in your flour bag and put a handful of flour in, okay? Now, what if you get where you don't have, where it looks dry? It doesn't look shaggy. Can can you look here and you can see how this dough is shaggy? It's, when you drag through it, it has like little points to it. This shaggy dough, you know, I've got one swallow of buttermilk. I'm just gonna put it in there. Otherwise it'll just be a waste. But you can see it's just a little shaggy dough. But right now, I just put that little swallow of buttermilk in there, and look how much wetter that dough is. You can see it glistening, okay? So that is going to be a little harder to deal with, which is no problem. So what I just added a little bit of flour. And all I'm gonna do is put it out on my take a spoon. Okay, we're gonna pause this for a second. Let me go check these other biscuits. Let's see what we got. Woo! That's so hot I can't even hold it. How's that look? We get it over here so Tim can see it. Look at that. So because of the high temperature of the oven, your parchment is going to look black, but your biscuits haven't burned. They're just, the paper can't handle that kind of heat. Usually 425 is as much as it can take. So we're going to set these right over here, let them set up for a second, and as soon as we get those other biscuits in the oven, we'll serve them. Okay? So back to our biscuits. You put them on the counter now. You had a little dough on there. Remember my bad joke that everybody needs to be kneaded, right? And I'm just turning this onto itself. And because I put that extra swallow of buttermilk, it's made it a little wet. So instead of doing it with my hand, I'm doing it with a pastry blender, but you just do it with your hand. And again, you can do it like my grandmother said, just say the names of all the people you love. That should be at least 10 or so, right? And all you're gonna do now is flatten those biscuits out. Okay. This is where the mistakes happen, right? People take those biscuits like that and they put it in there and twist. But you're not gonna do that, right? Now, I did not include a biscuit cutter for you. So what can you do it with? You can do it with a cookie cutter, or you can do it with a glass jar like this. But what you are going to be tempted to do with a glass jar is you're going to be tempted to turn that thing. Don't do it, okay? I'm going to have a sip of it while I'm here. But I'm going to do it in a biscuit cutter. So if you've got, even if you've got a glass jar, you make sure that's good and floured, okay? And then I would say with this one, I normally do like a almost, not quite a full inch, not my right to my, but I almost do to a full inch. And the reason why I like that is I've got some ham in the refrigerator, and I think this would make an excellent little lunch right now. So I'm gonna go in and out. Now if that doesn't come out, then I just leave it there, okay? In and out. None of these are wanting to come out. Nobody wants to come out and play today, but I'll show you how to do that, no problem. So we just keep cutting them. Oh, there we go. And then we just peel it around, okay? Now what we call these first biscuits of the first coat, we call those mother-in-law biscuits, okay? Because they're gonna be pretty, they're gonna have a really soft top to them, and we call those mother-in-law biscuits. And those are the ones you serve your mother-in-law. Then the others, when you refold this dough back, they're gonna be just the slightest bit tougher, okay? And so those are the ones you give to the kids. That one didn't want to come out at all. I'm just gonna do that one again. Langdon, please stop. He has the voice of an angel, but when it's in the background, it's hard to concentrate. Okay, so we've got these biscuits again. Now you'll see the fold lines in this, and you'll see how they're not going to be near as pretty as the other ones. They're going to taste just as good, but so you don't give those to your mother-in-law. Or if you don't like your mother-in-law, you can give her those. Whew, that extra swallow of buttermilk has done me in today. Trying to use it all just made me increase the difficulty. Now, when we get to the end, you can fold it up again. And cut your last of your biscuits out. And you're going to have a little bit of dough left, just the littlest bit. And what we normally do, well, I'm tired of fighting that dough. We'll do them with all of it. What we normally do is we take the dough that's left over, and we you can pat it out, and you can put butter and sugar in it, whatever. But then what we normally do is just take it and we just roll it over. And the reason why, and you just make a big old biscuit. Now, we call that the fat man because I don't know why, but every Southerner does. It's the leftover biscuit dough. And it's just the biscuits that, the dough that wouldn't combine, you just take it and put it on the thing and ready, so it'll just turn into a big old biscuit. Now, sadly, that'll be the ones the kids fight over every time, is they want the fat man. Sometimes I'll take it and I'll do like this. I'll take the fat man and I'll pinch off a little bit, and then I'll put him a hat on it. And the kids like it even more because the hat gets really crunchy and it keeps it underneath soft. And our daughter, that's one of our favorite things, when she gets a biscuit, when she gets the fat man that has a hat on him, she says, "Keep your hat on, sir." And because she liked to have a little bit of that crunch with the biscuit. Okay, let me put this in. Okay, so we have now made a cream biscuit. We've made an apple biscuit, an apple chive cheese biscuit, and we've now made our regular biscuit. So let's taste some of these cheddar biscuits. Do you think I can get somebody to taste them? Oh, there's plates already being thrust at me here. Oh. Look at these. They're so pretty. Do that. Take a little bit of my bacon jam there. Goodness, we might do one more here. How does that look? Can everybody see that? Lyndon, if you want a taster.
And these are?
These are the cheddar cheese biscuits. You're passing me your plate. Here, let me give you this one. You want bacon jam with it?
I'm good.
Okay. Tim? You want bacon jam with it? Yes, bacon jam? Oh, good.
Please.
They're nice. But you add something to it for sure.
Okay.
Can everyone see me?
There you go. That's better.
Here you go, babe. Okay. I might even taste one. How are they, guys? Good. Mmm. That's good.
Great.
Okay, I feel so guilty eating these and nobody, can y'all just come on over to my house real quick? We'll social distance and just throw them in the car windows. Mmm. Mmm. That coffee flavor and that bacon jam really comes through, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Mmm. Mmm, that's good. Lindsay, can you come on over here and eat some?
Sounds delicious.
Okay. So that's our cheddar cheese biscuit. Mmm, one more bite. Mmm. I forgot to set a timer. Let me see if I can. Hey Google, set a timer for 4 minutes. So I may have to check on those other biscuits a little bit.
Starting now.
Okay. So, does everybody have their biscuits in the oven? Okay, I'm trusting by no questions being asked that we're gonna stop for a second and see if there's any questions somebody needs to ask.
No, someone is, they're grateful for your information about butter. And I know at least 2 people are waiting for a cooler day to follow along. They're just watching.
I totally understand. Yeah, this is, when you make biscuits, we make biscuits every day in the South. You make them early in the morning before the heat of the day is gone. And you make enough of them because what you would do is at our house, not at the house growing up, but at my grandmother's, is she would be making what we call dinner, which is your midday meal. She'd be making that. She'd arrive early, make breakfast. They'd all go out to work in the field. And then all the workers would come in for dinner, which was our midday meal, which is also the hottest part of the South. And so they'd come in, they'd eat a big, I guess lunch is what y'all would call it. And then eat a dinner. And then she would have made enough biscuits. So then she'd have enough for supper, which is our evening meal, which is a light meal. It's usually like a soup or something, and then the biscuits would be served on the side. So she would already have her bread made for dinner. So, okay. Now we're gonna go on to a sweet biscuit. So this is a recipe that I did for Tasting Table, which is a website. And it has 3 steps to it. So the first step is making the strawberries. And these are what we call macerated strawberries. So I just took 1.5 pounds of strawberries and hold them and halved them. And I did a little bit more than that because these strawberries now, we are not in strawberry season anymore. We are done with that. And so I like this recipe because I love eating strawberry shortcake and strawberry stuff all summer long. But the strawberries are gone. There's no more of them. They're all coming in from some other place now. There's no more local ones. And so this particular recipe, because of the way we macerate it, it really gives some flavor back to the strawberries. Because the strawberries you're getting now, you'll notice they have a really white center in them. And they just don't have the flavor of the locally grown berries. So they're real big and they're white in the center. And so by macerating them, then you can add some flavor back to it and enjoy strawberry shortcake throughout the summer. So I had the 1.5 pounds of strawberries that I'd cut up, and then I added sugar to it. Now, when you add sugar to fruit, what you're telling the fruit is, release all your water, get all your water out. And so it's telling it to release water. And you don't want to do this like the night before, because what's going to happen is it's going to get too wet and your berries are going to get soggy. So you need to do it, an hour or so before you're going to serve it. So this is about an hour and a half. And my strawberries aren't soft, but they all become this beautiful pink color. So I've added the sugar and I added cognac because I happen to love cognac. So cognac is just like a form of brandy, but you do not have to do this. What you can do if you don't want to add cognac is add orange juice. Same exact, oh, you know what? Hold that thought, let me check these biscuits. Woo, not quite yet. Hey Google, set a timer for 3 minutes. Is you need a little acid. Now, because every dessert, the problem some people have with the desserts is they go with what we call one-note desserts. They place the flavor, like the almond flavor, in one note or one time in a dessert, and they don't repeat it again. And so I put a little almond extract in here because I'm going to use almonds on the top of this, and I want that almond flavor to be repeated throughout the dessert. Okay, so now we've macerated our strawberries and we can set those aside. Ooh, those taste good. I'm going to taste one. Oh man, that is so good. Now we're going to do our mascarpone cheese. Okay, now mascarpone cheese is an Italian cheese. It's real soft, and I love it in desserts. You probably have tasted it when you had a cannoli or something like that. So you put about 1.5 cups of mascarpone cheese, 6 tablespoons of heavy cream, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So basically you're making the contents of like a cannoli.
Anne asked Julia that all the ingredients you gave them were for the basic Southern biscuit.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I did not give you the ingredients for all this. Mostly not because I would have loved to have, but you know, this day and age of food allergies, if I'd given somebody a strawberry, next thing I know, we have a problem. Or definitely with this one because it has nuts in it. So we stuck with things we knew people would know for sure. If you know you're gluten in trouble with gluten, then you surely wouldn't be in a biscuit class. But anyway, so this is the mascarpone cream, and I've already made that up this morning. Okay, and then I've made the garnish, which is sliced almonds and a little powdered sugar. So that's ready to go. So now all we're going to do is make the biscuit. So the reason why I wanted to do this is that biscuits can, you've seen now that biscuits have a lot of different uses. We had a cream biscuit that we put pimento cheese on, right? Then we had a cheese biscuit. That's a really hearty biscuit. I mean, that is a stand up to you for your biscuit. And it, that is savory, okay? But you can have a biscuit now, and you can have a sweet biscuit, and it is ready to go for dessert. And when we make one of these things up, it really is. It's one of the prettiest desserts you're going to make. So it is a beautiful dessert. It's not your normal strawberry shortcake where they just slice open a pound cake from the store and just put some strawberries on it. This really is. This is a beauty of a dessert. So let me get our, oh, let me check these biscuits. Hold on. No. Hey, Google, put 4 more minutes on. Okay, so we'll start making this biscuit.
It looks like there aren't any timers running at the moment.
Hey, Google, set a timer for 4 minutes.
4 minutes, and that's starting now.
Okay, and the other reason why I wanted to include this recipe is that when you get into higher levels of cooking, they don't explain things as well. They expect for you to know that biscuit dough should be shaggy, and they expect for you to know that you're supposed to snap the fat and all that. So like, for instance, if you'll look at this, this is a recipe for cooking professionals. It just tells you macerate the strawberries, make the biscuits, you know, in a sheet pan, and it just simply says mix the dough forms, being careful not to overwork, and then it just says, you know, divide the dough. They don't tell you enough information, okay? And so I wanted you to be able to see what good biscuit dough should look like. It should have that shaggy texture. The fat should be mixed in and all that. So we'll be able to do that. Okay. So we've got our flour, and it's all been fluffed up beforehand. We have our buttermilk. I need my buttermilk and heavy cream. Hold on. You'll notice, if you're a sharp noticer, you'll notice I've swapped buttermilk. I like two kinds of buttermilk here. I like the ShopRite buttermilk, which sometimes is hard to find. They don't always carry it. And I like this Kate's buttermilk. Both of them, this is a thicker buttermilk. So we may need to look to make sure that there's enough liquid to give a shaggy dough. And then, but I rarely have to do that with this one. This one usually it's a little thinner, and it usually works out exactly how the recipe is. With this one, I may have to add just a little bit. So, but those are the two that I definitely like the most. The most important thing you need to know about buttermilk, though, is it's got to be shaken. So sometimes I joke around and I say, the good thing about it is I get a little workout, right? Remember those shaking machines that your mama probably did with a belt around her? So we're going to mix our baking powder and kosher salt in here. This is an odd one in that rather than sugar, it actually puts in honey. And I think what it does is it gives a lovely texture. A lovely texture to the biscuit. You know what? Let me move that buttermilk so you're not looking through there. Hey, Langdon? And look, my honey's spilled a little bit here, so I'm gonna get that off the sheet. And we need to put in our butter. And on this one, I'm using unsalted butter because it will, there's enough salt in the kosher salt that I've already put a teaspoon of kosher salt in there. Okay? Well, it seems like every time I start doing something here, hold on, let me go check these again. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. We're going to put a pause. I'm going to bring this over. Are y'all able to pause for just a second? We're going to set that to the side. Let's put these biscuits on this plate. You know, pausing this is hard. You got to move everything out of the way. You know what, Tim, will you get me another parchment paper? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Y'all see that? We got our mother-in-law biscuits over here. Those are pretty. Give those to her. Put these down on the bottom for the kids. Right? Always put those mother-in-law biscuits on top, you know. And this is what y'all's biscuits will look like. And I want you to look. See the sides of this? They have just, I mean, if you can see it close, they have just hundreds of little, you know, air pocket holes all the way around it, okay? And that's what you want. That's where those butter fats, you know, they got in that hot oven, they melted quickly, and they left a spot. I'll show it again here. You can see just little, I can't hold it too long. You can see all the little crack, you know, see where they're just little holes, where they left little holes. And obviously when we open it up, you can just see it just comes out in layers. And that, you can see the little holes here. That's where there was butter that then melted immediately and then left a little open spot. Left an open spot, perfect for jam. You know what? I think I'm gonna have me some of this. Unsalted butter, but you want some, Tim?
Sure.
Oh, good. Hold on 1 second. Let's get some good butter. Now we just made strawberry jam with the last of the strawberries we could find out in the field. You want some strawberry jam with that, Tim?
Good right now.
Wow. Langdon, you want a biscuit? There is nothing like a good warm biscuit.
I just want to know what this is.
It's just a plain biscuit. Sorry. Okay, it's hot. What do you boys think?
It's really good.
And here's our fat man with his hat on, right there. Our daughter would tell him to keep his hat on. So there's our
I
biscuit.
think it's the best action biscuits in the
Oh, really? Okay. So those are regular biscuits. Okay, let's get back to our dessert biscuit now. Woo! Ah, okay. Okay. So where we were, we had not put our fat into our biscuit yet. Now I'm gonna tell you, I made a little mistake here. I should not have put that honey in just yet, but we'll make it through. You should always put your liquids all together at the same time. So let's get our 6 tablespoons of butter in there. Now, one thing that's different about this particular recipe is we are going to put it in an oven at 425 degrees, but we're going to let it cook there for just 6 minutes or so. And then I'm going to rotate the pan, and then I'm going to decrease my temperature to 375. And that's to give it a little bit more of a cake-like texture. So we're not going to cook it at those high temperatures like we did the other biscuits. Okay, so we've got our butter in there. We also have our honey. And now we're just going to snap that fat. And again, one reason why I wanted to definitely give you this recipe is because a lot of people don't know the steps of biscuits, and then they get a professional recipe like this. They see it on the web or something like that, and they're like, well, they didn't tell me how to do this. They didn't tell me. It just simply says in a large bowl, add all the biscuit ingredients and mix until a dough forms. And if you didn't know how to make a biscuit, you wouldn't know that you need to snap the fat, and you need to stir with a fork, and you need to do your flour where you measure it out properly. And so they don't tell you, especially on like sites like Tasting Table and Smitten and some of those others, they don't tell you all the steps. But now you know all the secrets behind it, so you can do it anytime you want. Okay, still got too many chunks. My hand's too hot. I can feel the butter melting. Let me go to my pastry blender. You want another one, Langdon? There you go. You can eat any. You can eat the fat man. Nobody's here. You can eat the fat man. I've encouraged them all to drive by, but they didn't. They didn't do it. So so you can eat the fat man.
I'll eat him in a minute.
Okay. You see how this is beginning to look like course meal or feta? So we're ready now. So now we need to add our liquids. Okay. So we're gonna add 2/3 a cup of heavy cream and a cup of buttermilk. Give that another shakeroo again. So what that heavy cream is doing is we had the fat of the butter, but it's giving us another fat. So this will have a double fat. So I don't think you're gonna see this in the Weight Watchers cookbook. Ooh. Hold on, I gotta get my eyes focused. Here it is. And remember, see, they don't mention this in this recipe, but remember, we're gonna stir with a fork. Okay? Now this recipe does something different. It does not tell us to roll this dough out. What it tells us instead is to divide the dough into 12 1/4 cup little pucks and then drop them on the prepared sheet. Now they don't tell us exactly how to prepare this sheet, except with parchment paper. But you know that if you just need to start with parchment paper, that it'll have it. So see how this dough is, that is a really shaggy dough. That's actually, it's beautiful. Okay. And then we're just gonna drop that onto our baking dish here. So we take a spoon, make a little puck, and drop it on. Now, if you're one of those people who gets, their finger gets stuck to all the stuff, just put a little flour on your finger. It won't hurt your stuff like that. And then it'll come off every time. Now, I like to make the edges pretty, because what we're gonna do is cut this thing in half. And then I'm going to slice it open. I'm gonna put mascarpone on each side and then cover it in the strawberries, the macerated strawberries. And if somebody had done really good that day, I might even make whipped cream. But let me tell you, in this heat, making whipped cream in this heat, you're just making, as my father-in-law says, you're just making calf slobber. So this makes 6 on this pan, and I think that'll be enough to show you, and then I'll make 6 a little later. This dough keeps really well too. So if you're like, well, I want to make 6 now and 6 tomorrow, it will keep really well. But it only keeps for about a day and a half, 2 days maybe. Okay, we're gonna put this into the 425-degree oven, and then we're gonna lower it. So let's put that in. Hey Google, set a timer for 6 minutes.
6 minutes, starting now.
Julia, 2 questions. One, can you remind us the name of the flour, please?
Yes. The name of the flour, hold on 1 second. The name of the flour is white lily flour. Okay? And you can get it on Amazon, but here's the recipe that I included for you. If you'll look through your packet, you'll see I have something called Southern Wannabe flour. Do y'all see that? Anybody? Lindsay? The Southern Wannabe flour is a recipe. You know what? I had to change the name. I'm sorry about that. It's called self-made Southern self-rising flour. And so a lot of times when we lived in Canada, I mean, you couldn't get Amazon. And so I had to take all their different flours and figure out how can I make flour as close to White Lily as possible. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but this is the closest that I was able to get. So here, if you have King Arthur red all-purpose flour, take a half a cup of King Arthur red. Then take a half a cup of cake flour. And then take a half to 1 teaspoon of salt. And then 1.5 teaspoon of baking powder. And you sift all of those ingredients together, and you can store that in an airtight container or at room temperature. If you store it at room temperature, you can keep it for a few weeks, but if you put it in your refrigerator, you can keep it for about 3 months. And if you put it in your freezer, you can keep it over a year. But this is, it's what we call Southern wannabe flour, but it's really just basically self-made Southern flour. And so you would be able to do that and not have to buy it through Amazon. Because when you see how much it is on Amazon, you're going to go, well, I'll never do that again. Well, I want you to make biscuits. I want you, now that you've earned your pearls, I want you to make biscuits and have them regularly. So, so this is a way you can make self-rising flour, and it tastes the closest you can get to White Lily. Okay?
One more question. Someone was talking about the difference between the liquid measuring cup and the dry measuring cup.
Yep.
Which one do you
Yep.
use, or do you follow that?
Yes, 100%. So I have one. This one right here is a liquid measuring cup, but it looks like a dry measuring cup. Okay? But this is a liquid. But you always, if it says liquid, you use a liquid measuring cup. And I know that's confusing sometimes when I do shows. This one looks like a dry one, but it's actually built with a slope. So it does measure liquid correctly. But always use a liquid measuring cup. If you don't, it's just like the flour, where you get between 12 and 15% more. You will also, you'll have your flour and liquid misbalanced if you don't use a liquid measuring cup. Matter of fact, if somebody says they have a dry biscuit, those are the first 2 things I tell them is, okay, how do you dip out your flour? And the next thing I ask them is, then how do you measure your liquids? So always have a liquid measuring cup. Any other questions?
No, just a few people said, thank you, loved all the helpful hints and recipes and tips and tricks.
Okay, now the last thing I'm going to tell you is, as I said, we make biscuits pretty much every day, right? They come out of the oven. Well, sometimes we get a backlog of biscuits, right? So what can I do with all those backlog of biscuits, right? Well, the first thing you can do is I included for you is an overnight biscuit, sausage, and apple casserole. So this is something that you can take 6 cups of biscuits that you have left over. You just tear them into the pieces. You cook up about 2 pounds of bulk sausage. You have apples cored and sliced, and with eggs and Dijon mustard and cheese and milk, and you have a casserole. Now, this makes a lot. I think my grandmother must have been trying to serve everybody in the county with that thing. So what I do with that is I make it into 2 or 3 little casserole dishes, and one of them I totally cook, and then the other one I partially cook, and then I put it in the freezer, and then I can just pull it out and cook it for breakfast one morning. So that's what I do with leftover biscuits. I've already told you I make croutons, and little cinnamon sugar croutons and all that. You could do those with leftover biscuits. You can also make a panzanelle salad with tomato and basil. That's a great thing. There's actually a whole website done by White Lily that says all the things to do with leftover biscuits. There is a ton of things you can make with it. You can flatten them out and use them as rolls, and even make like a put like a hot dog in it for the kids. You flatten out and then you can fry it real quickly. I mean, it's not something personally that I do, but I know people who love that. Here, let me check these biscuits. Hey, not quite. Oh, I gotta turn that thing. Let me turn it and drop it to 375. Okay. And then if you want some other hints, I think Lindsay has given y'all my email. If not, here's my email. It's M as in Mary, M Julia, Julia, Mitchell, Mitchell. So mjuliamitchell@gmail.com. And if you want some other recipes of what you can do with biscuits, I'll be more than happy to help you with those. And I included as the last, I believe that brunch is one of the easiest parties you can throw. I love doing a brunch. You can prepare everything pretty much ahead of time. And I always say if you have a good biscuit, a big bowl of fruit, and a good casserole, everybody's happy at brunch. So I included my recipe for grape sparklers. This is a very easy recipe where you take the grapes and you puree them, and then you use the juice that's in those grapes to then mix with a sparkling dry wine like a Prosecco or something. And then you put some mint, put the grape juice in there, put a couple of grapes in there, put the Prosecco and a couple of mint leaves, and it is divine. It is divine. So I did include that recipe in there. I'm just hoping that once COVID ends soon, we can all have a good Southern brunch. So y'all have any more questions while we're waiting for this last one to come out?
No, someone just said, great class sheet is amazing.
Well, that is very, very sweet. Very sweet. I don't know if biscuits is an amazing thing, but it definitely, it's a fun, they're fun, they're easy to make. They're so easy to make. I mean, and just think about it. I don't know, how long have we been doing this now? Oh goodness, 2 hours. How in the world has it been 2 hours? But we've made cream biscuits, regular Southern biscuits, apple cheddar biscuits. Pimento cheese came out. We're fixing to have a sweet biscuit. So, I mean, biscuits actually go fast. If I wasn't talking so long, you would have been gone ages ago. So, these biscuits will be out any minute. Any other questions?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you wanted to say something to Julia. I don't see any others in the chat there.
Thank you. You have been amazing.
Oh, thank
I
you.
had no idea that there was this much involved in biscuits, but you've taught me everything about it.
I'm so glad. See, and you've earned your pearls, you know? Every time you put on pearls, you know that you're an honorary Southern belle.
Well, you know, you sent us a little stretchy pearl necklace, and now I know once I
Yeah.
make biscuits, I can wear it.
That's right. You can wear it with pride.
Thank you so much.
Sure enough.
Thank you, Julia. I can't wait for a cooler day. I'm ready to go. I have notes on all my recipe sheets. Yay, fantastic.
Well, I am so glad y'all hung around for the full 2 hours. I can't believe, like I said, I talked that long. My husband probably totally believes that I talked that long. But I think biscuits are, like I said, you can have them everything from breakfast to something savory for dinner or you know, even for dessert. So
Hi, Julia.
rather than strawberries, blackberries are even better with biscuits.
Hi, Julia.
Hey.
I just wanted to say I loved your story about your grandfather, and the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Well,
And the other thing is, I wanted to say that I learned so much from you today, and I am a home economics teacher.
Oh, wow, I'm honored. Oh my goodness. You know, I failed home ec. I just
You
wanted to
you
cook.
did?
I just wanted to do the cooking part. The sewing was really hard for me.
And my husband was the one that went to the door when you dropped things off, so I didn't get to see you. But I just wanted to say that I was so impressed with the way you gave us all the ingredients. And I'm wearing the pearls now, like a lot of us are. And it was so nice to hear the story behind the pearls. But
well,
I'm going to give you an A++.
Oh, well, I feel redeemed. I'm calling Miss England right now and tell her that a home ec teacher has adjusted my grade. But don't test me on sewing.
Oh, I taught, you know something? I also taught that, and interior design.
Oh, yeah? I believe if everybody would be so much better if we still had home ec in the schools.
Oh, absolutely, especially with this COVID, because my husband is so happy that I did not major in history or English because he eats very well, as does your husband.
Yeah, they can complain about a lot of things, but he can't complain that he doesn't get a good meal every day. So let me check on these biscuits and we'll see if we're done.
Thank you again.
Oh, thank y'all for doing it. I really, I love teaching stuff about the South. I think there's a lot of things in the South that people go, well, those people are crazy. At least I like showing the food. I know is not crazy. The food is good. So let me see. These biscuits aren't quite done, but let me grab one out. Oh, I can't. It just needs a couple more minutes. Okay. Tim said y'all might want to see all this again. I'll move all that so you can see the different types of biscuits, and maybe that will remind you if there's any questions you might have. So those are apple cheddar with chives. This is what you're going to make. That's going to be a homemade Southern biscuit right there. Well, I can see Langdon's been in here. These are those cream biscuits. Now look, these cream biscuits have set out for 20 minutes, and you can see they're just, it's not that they're bad, they taste more like cake. Where this, you can come back to this biscuit a day later and just be just as happy. You know, it just has a sponginess to it. So, and then I guess we'll have the last. So I'll do this last one so y'all can get going. Now don't do how I'm doing. I'm cutting it while it's hot. And you just slice that biscuit open and lay it flat there. You take this mascarpone mixture.
Oh my God.
You put the mascarpone on it.
Oh.
And then I like to put the strawberries on. I sort of lean so the juice goes to one side. And I'll put the strawberries on first. And then I'll just put a little of the juice on. Okay? And I top it with toasted almonds. That's where that repeat of the almond comes from. And then, you know, because we do it just so we can be jealous here. We put a little powdered sugar on it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And that is the tasting table Langdon, you want to come and get your last bite? Come on, bud.
Wish I were in your kitchen.
I wish you were too, because these boys aren't going to be able to eat all this, and I'm
Oh
fixing
my
to go out of town.
God.
Here you go. Here you go.
Mm. Oh my God. Oh.
What do you think? Amazing.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, if anybody doesn't have any other questions, you have my email. You can definitely email me. Or if you have a recipe that's just not going your way, that's what I do for a living, is I fix tricky recipes. So I can definitely help you with that. And if not, if you got any other questions, you just give me a holler. Okay? Thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
So much. This was so special. Thank you for all
What a
your
great class. Oh my God.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thank Mary. Oh my God. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Anytime.
I don't want to leave.
Okay. Well, we can do fried chicken. You want to start doing fried
Oh
chicken?
yeah, go for that too. Yeah, okay.
Well, I'll see some of y'all in a couple of weeks if y'all want to do canning with me.
Yes.
I'm gonna be your neighbor. Where do you live?
Yeah, we live on Green Acre.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just come over and get them.
Have a good
Okay.
day.
Talk to
Bye-bye.
you later. Bye, y'all.
So much. Thank you. Your filming crew and your tasting crew. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone. Thank you.